going away with England, the Spurs boys and the lads who were there, they're literally laughing at us at what we're getting paid. People going off what happened on the Amazon thing is just, you shouldn't believe everything that you hear and you see on there, because ultimately that's all fabricated to make the club look as glamorous as possible. And Tim, and Harry pulled me to a side and you say, put your ideas up, then I'm not sure I would have got into the Tottenham team at all. I don't think Spurs have that right to be saying we're gonna challenge this year. They've not earned the right. I was guilty of thinking that we could have done that when I was there.
Hello everybody and a warm welcome then to In The Zone, brought to you by Gambling Zone, where you can find all the latest betting offers at gamblingzone.com/UK/betting. 18 plus, T&Cs apply. In this series, of course, I talk to some of the biggest names in sport, charting their successes, their challenges that they've faced in their journey in becoming the top of their game. And today's guest is a former footballer. He spent 14 years at Spurs, considered one of the best left backs in the Premier League at the time, involved in 2 title tussles. He played in a League Cup final, a Champions League final in 2019, and he also gained 29 England caps. And thankfully for us, he likes to say it how it is. He's former left back, Danny Rose. Danny, how are you?
I'm not bad, thank you. How are you?
All right, not bad at all, despite the slightly wet weather we get in September now.
Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah. And what have you been up to?
Just keeping myself to myself. Staying off the radar, playing a lot of paddle.
Everybody loves paddle at the
yeah,
minute.
it's my favourite at the minute. So yeah, that's all I'm doing at the minute. I play a lot of that with Michael Dawson. So yeah, that's all I've been doing.
And I have to state here, you're not retired from the game. You're still possibly looking to get back into football, right?
It's just something that I would never announce publicly. If that was ever the case, it would be just news for my immediate family and close friends. But no, I've not. I'd like to think there's nothing out there saying that I've retired. So yeah, we'll just.
No, there isn't. I've checked.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Unless you want to break anything on today.
No. So that means I've been doing well, staying under the radar then, and no, just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, staying under the radar is how we like it, because it makes the next hour even more fascinating. So look, let's start right at the beginning, because interestingly, we're talking about retiring and all that, but it was quite a while ago now when you first started out as a footballer, born in Doncaster, in a rather footballing kind of family. You had so many relations, around you who either played football or went on to play football.
Yeah. So yeah, it was great that I had, people within my family that had played football at, different levels, not at the level that I played at. But yeah, it was something to look up to as a kid growing up, and I was a huge Man United fan growing up. So being in tune with watching United win all the time, and having an immediate family playing football, it was just always something that I aspired to be.
Any big influences amongst your family members at the time?
No, not really. Just I would say my dad. That's how I started playing football, was, going to watch him on a weekend, just locally, every Saturday and Sunday. And, I'd then, be playing at the side of the pitch with, other kids. And, that's how I got into football. And, after that, he would always make sure I got to Leeds 4 times a week for training, which, was just, when I look back now, I just think it's incredible that he made sure, either it was him taking me or, someone else was taking me, one of my uncles or, a friend. So when I look back now and I think about the dedication that he went through, and it wasn't because he wanted me to be a footballer or that he believed that I was going to be a footballer. He just did that off his own back as a dad. And I think that's just unbelievable what he did.
You came through the Leeds United Academy. That was quite an interesting time because no sooner had you made your breakthrough to the first team, there was a management change after that first game.
Yeah, so the last year of school, year 11, I would miss 1 or 2 days of school to go in and train with the first team back then, under Kevin Blackwell, and he loved me. And at the end of year 11, before we're now going into full time at Leeds, I had an opportunity to move to Chelsea with 2 other players that who went at the time, and Leeds and Kevin Blackwell convinced me to stay, and I believed that I was going to play for Leeds. Had he stayed on longer as a manager, I managed to get on the bench in the first 3 games of the season. I think in the Carling Cup, I think it was called back then, and literally after that, he lost his job, and it just sort of changed everything for me from then on. Dennis Wise came in, and he had a job to keep Leeds United in the Championship, and it's not his problem, the promises that were made to me before he arrived, and it just didn't work out for me. Making my debut for Leeds under Dennis Wise. So for me, probably by Christmas time, my mind was made up as a 15-year-old then that I'm not staying here. I'm playing youth team football, I'm playing reserve team football, and training with the first team, and I'm one of the best players, even at 15. And then I was watching other players being handed their debuts who were not as good as me. And as I said, from probably Christmas time, my mind was made up that I was leaving. I didn't know it was going to be Tottenham at the time. And, over the coming months, I was aware that Spurs were interested in me, and they flew me down to watch a game. And that was it. I was leaving, and, Leeds then called me the first day of pre-season, the season after, saying, you need to report back at this time, at this day. And I just told them, no, I'm not coming back. And that was that.
You talk about where you stood amongst your peers and how you always had that belief in yourself. Has that always been the case, Danny?
Yeah, like I initially joined Leeds as an 11-year-old straight from Sunday League, and I joined just not knowing the basics in terms of, playing 1 and 2 touch was just a foreign language to me coming from Sunday League. So, in all honesty, I was way behind, and, within 2 or 3 years of me being there, I was then the best. And that's why, I was scouted by Chelsea and flew down by Chelsea to watch a game and stuff like that. So, I would say from probably the ages of 14 to 15 is then when I knew I was not bad at football, and I believed from then that I was going to be a professional footballer.
But to play then at 15, then the manager changes at Leeds. It's almost like you've had the carpet pulled from under your feet.
Yeah.
Was that an early lesson about the kind of, constant changing nature of football?
Yeah, like when you put it like that, and thinking about it now, I would say, yeah, that was a definite early lesson, because literally I'd done all pre-season with the first team. As I said, on the bench for the first time in the Carling Cup. I didn't get on, but I still felt it's coming. And yeah, unfortunately, Kevin Blackwell lost his job. And so yeah, that was my first experience into, realising that, football can change just in an instant.
So at 17, you move to Spurs. Is it right? It cost £1 million?
Yeah.
That's got to be, in the end, that was a bit of a bargain as far as Spurs are concerned.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. The Leeds fans will agree with you there. I think some of them are still unhappy that I left initially, but yeah, I moved for £1 million. And
what was it like moving to the capital at 17? Were you ready for that size move?
Yeah, loved it. I literally was in a hotel for probably a few weeks, and then I moved into an apartment by myself, and that was it. I was alone, learning to cook, clean, and all the rest of it. I had to grow up really, really quick. And luckily, I had a lot of Northern players there in the first team, in terms of Aaron Lennon, who he was like a brother to me and still is, Tom Huddleston, Jermaine Genius, Michael Dawson. So yeah, I had those players were like a home away from home for me, especially Aaron. I I was with Aaron, every single day wherever he went. So they helped me settle in a lot quicker than I probably would have done if they wasn't there.
So that helped alleviate any pressure going to a club the size of Tottenham.
Yeah, but I didn't feel like there was pressure in terms of, I'm going to a Premier League club. They've got all these star names, players. It didn't faze me in the slightest. I knew I was a good player, and I just still felt it was just a matter of time before I played. I didn't know it was going to be at Tottenham or somewhere else because the first 2 or 3 years there, I had a bad injury.
Yeah, you had a knee injury.
Yeah,
didn't you?
that was my first knee surgery. Again, I was just on the bench under Juan de Ramos, and again I would have played. I was close, and literally I went away with England, and it was a freak accident. I ran into somebody, and that was it. I was out for 5 months, and then he lost his job, and then Harry came.
Yeah, that explains why it took so long for you to make your first league start, right? Because you joined in 2007, and your first league start wasn't until 2010. You had a few loans. You had a couple of loans in there.
Yeah, I had two. I had one loan to Watford, which was only for the last 6 to 8 weeks of the season. And I was then returning from that knee injury. That season, then I'd done the pre-season with Harry as part of the first team, and then I was allowed to leave on loan again. I went to Peterborough. I didn't do too well there, and then I returned around November, December time, and I was then back training with the first team, and I was not featuring as much as I'd liked, and
you had to be patient, didn't you?
No, I did have to be patient, but when you've got people like Harry and Tim, who was there at the time, if you're not doing stuff right, they will tell you, and both of them told me that my attitude wasn't correct and it needed to improve. And after that, it was just there was a change in that and how I trained and the way I approached training, and there was just a huge shift in my mentality, and Tim will tell you that. And ever since then, Tim Sherwood has been my biggest not fan, but he's been my biggest
mentor.
Who pushed for me to get into that team, and it's not just me. There's a lot of players I could mention, but for me, without Tim, I'm not sure that I would have got the opportunities that I got at Spurs.
Can you just tell me a little bit more about this attitude thing? What was it?
Yeah, just not training hard enough, not looking like I wanted to be there, sort of thing.
Did you want to be there?
Yeah, I did want to be there, but it was just, you get to a certain age and you look at your friends who you've grown up with and they're playing a little bit at their clubs, and I felt as if I was nowhere near that, and it was obviously difficult to go through it at the time. But as I said, without having that, Tim, and Harry pull me to a side and you say, "Put your ideas up," then I'm not sure I would have got into the Tottenham team at all.
Let's talk about the Spurs League debut.
Yeah, well,
I think everybody's going to be talking about it, particularly now with the fixture coming around yet again.
Yeah, so we'd played Portsmouth in the FA Cup on the Saturday or Sunday, and semi-final, and we all expected to win that game, and we lost. And then the next day in training, you sort of heard rumours that obviously the gaffer's not happy, which he wouldn't be, and there's going to be some changes for the game on the Wednesday or Thursday against Arsenal. And yeah, when you heard those rumours, never once did I think that it was going to be me who was going to be playing. And we did the team shape the day before, and I was in the team, and I was probably the most nervous that I've ever been, and and we played the game, and the rest is history.
Why are you not talking about the goal? So look, the cross comes in.
Yeah.
Almunia punches it 20, 25 yards, maybe 40 yards in your end. And you come up with the most incredible volley.
Yeah, it's funny that because I would never ever do that now. That was more out of nerves in terms of I didn't want to control it and then lose it, and then Arsenal are on the counter attack. But now I'd do probably anything but shoot. I'd control it, I'd try and nutmeg somebody. I'd do anything, but that was purely out of not losing the ball at the end of the box and just hit it as hard as you could. And luckily I connected really well and it went in.
It was only 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it took so many people by surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably took you by surprise.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, how did it feel the moment it hit the back of the net?
Yeah, it was just a surreal, unreal moment. Obviously, yeah, you want to play well on your first start. You want to play well against your rivals, but never did I imagine, scoring a goal like that on my debut.
You became the talk of the town after that. What did that one goal do to your profile?
I'm not sure it did much, to be honest.
But
because
can you not remember the fallout, the papers, what people were saying? Were you not interested in any of that, or were you made aware of it?
No, I was obviously made aware of it because my mum and dad will obviously, they pay attention to all that and save all that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't say it did much for my career because I then didn't probably feature again. I went on loan.
Yeah.
To Bristol, I think, after that. So
I didn't talk about that. Actually.
Yeah, I didn't then feature for Spurs until probably 6 months after that, when I returned from another bad loan spell.
You see, now that's interesting because I suppose from a personal point of view, it didn't take you on that trajectory that you were hoping.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk about that in a second. But I suppose for the Spurs fans at the time, what that meant was everything, because you were chasing down the top 4 spots.
Yeah.
And what that also did was put Arsenal essentially out of the reckoning for the title.
Right, I don't even remember Arsenal being up there like that.
Yeah.
But I do remember that we had Arsenal, Chelsea, Burnley and City, I think, the last 4 games.
You were chasing Man City for top 4.
Right, okay, yeah, and I remember that. And obviously, losing to Portsmouth in the semi-final of the FA Cup on the weekend, and those are your next 4 games to try and save your season. I'm very happy that I managed to play a small part in the club reaching the top 4, which was their goal for so long. And it's a great feeling. But I would honestly say I don't feel as if it did much for my career after that, because as I said, I didn't play again for probably another 6 months, I think.
So how hard was that to take? You've just scored a wonder goal which helped Spurs to their first Premier League win over Arsenal in over a decade.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But then you end up going to Bristol City and Sunderland on loan. So if anything, you've been forced to take a sideward steps and trying to gain some momentum. Yeah,
so going to Bristol on loan, it's probably sideways or a backward step. But in terms of...
But all I mean is being out of the picture of the first team.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I just wanted to play every week. And, going to Bristol, they offered me that opportunity, which, I'll always be grateful for. But the reality is I didn't pull up any trees there. And which then led to me returning back to Spurs around November, December time. And then, back around the first team again. And I'd play, back then I'd always... whenever there'd be an FA Cup draw or whatever, I'd always, be glued to the TV, because that's when I'd get my game time in the early rounds of the FA Cup, the Europa League back then, when the first teamers didn't really want to play, and the Carling Cup. So I'd always be glued to the TV whenever the draw would be on. And so that's when I'd get my game time. And then, towards the end of that season, Benoit Asuakoto got injured, and then I played the remaining 4 or 5 games, and I'd done really, really well. And again, that's when I thought, okay, now I'm going to be in, or maybe sharing the load with Benoit a lot more than, what I had been doing. And again, that didn't happen. And which then led me to go to Sunderland on loan in the Premier League. And I think that's where then everybody knew that, I was capable of playing at the level week in, week out. I was the amount of, trophies for man of the matches I won at Sunderland, and, it was just unbelievable. And for me, I'll always owe Sunderland and Martin O'Neill everything for that, because Martin O'Neill took a relatively not proven left back in the Premier League on loan, and I went there as the only left back, and that was great in itself, because I knew that if I made a mistake, I'm still going to play the next game. And, that was just amazing for me. And Martin O'Neill is the best man manager that I've ever had. And, would get beat. And he'd shout at the players after the game, and then he'd always finish it with, just singling me out and saying how good I was and how, I'm not even his player, and, you need to learn from, how he's playing. And he would make me feel on top of the world whenever he did that. And I think that showed in my performances for Sunderland.
Danny, as you know, I'm a Leicester fan. I will never have a bad word said about Martin O'Neill. He was brilliant during his time, actually, for us in getting us into that top 10 position when we first made the Premier League. You talk about his man management. That's what I hear about a lot.
He is unbelievable. I was just a while ago just walking, and I just thought, let me give him a text message just to thank him. This is like 10 years on, just to thank him for everything that he did. The career that I had after that is because of him. And I've got like 3 stories of just how he made me feel like on top of the world, and I'd never had that before. And I love him to bits for that.
That's so funny. I did something very similar. I heard him on the radio. I sent him a message. He said, "Let's meet up for a coffee."
Yeah.
And he made my life hell, by the way, as a trainee journalist.
Really?
Because he was very much like Brian Clough.
Yeah.
Because he would be like, if you asked the wrong question or he didn't like it, he'll be like, walk out that door. Yeah. Let's start this again.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, I was never on the end of that side to...
No, but he says, look at you now, son. That's what he's like.
Yeah. So I sent him that message, and then within 5 minutes, he called me, and I just remember being on the street, just laughing like a teenager, as if I'm speaking to my hero, and that's the sort of standard that I hold Martin to, and as I said, I love him to bits.
That's interesting. So you owe Martin and Sunderland a great deal, actually.
For sure, mate. For sure.
Talking of managers, is it true, as part of your football development, were you a left winger originally, and did Harry say to you at Spurs, I think you should hone in as being a left back, because that's where England could do with some help?
So at Leeds, our DNA and what we was brought up on from 11 to 16 was a 4-3-3 formation, and I used to play the left of a midfield three, and that midfield three was what Chelsea intended to purchase back then when I could have gone. So them two then
so
left.
You could have gone to Chelsea instead of Tottenham.
The year before, yes. Yeah. So that's what I grew up on, under 4-3-3 at Leeds. And so, my position was like left of a 3 in the middle. So, I went to Spurs, being able to play that way. And how I got to playing left back was just complete fluke. So at that time, there was only one left back at Spurs in Benoit, and there was Gareth as well. I can't forget my name.
How can you forget?
But then Benoit got injured.
Yeah.
So then whenever we do 11v11, me and Gareth are then the only 2 left footers. So Gareth would go left back on one team, and obviously I'd go left back on the other team. And that's just how it happened. If Benoit had never got injured, and I'd done really well there. And Harry and Tim, they told me that, look, we've got Luka Modric here. You're not going to play in midfield ahead of him. So you should focus on playing left back. And they both said that I believe that you could play for England there. And I didn't buy into it because, I didn't want to play there. And and that's just how it started. And, playing left back in training, and then in the games where I would play, I'd play left back. So that's how it all started.
How hard is it to switch from one position to the other?
Not hard for me, because playing in midfield, you would generally receive the ball facing your own goal and pressure behind you. Now getting the ball as left back, you're receiving the ball.
It's always one way.
Everything's in front of you. So in that sense, not difficult at all. But what was difficult was playing offsides and getting the distances right from the left centre back. And that was a little bit difficult. But to say I wasn't coached how to play left back until I was 26. When Pochettino came to the club, I'd like to think that, I adjusted well and I'd done a very good job.
But you had all the attributes anyway.
I had the attributes, but in terms of actually being coached and, showing video clips, look, you're doing this wrong. You need to be here. These are the distances that we want. In terms of that, I was winging it for 5 years.
You weren't winging it. You were left backing it.
Left backing it, yeah. So I was relying on unreal communication from Dawson, Jonathan Woodgate, Ledley King, William Gallas. So without them as well, it could have gone not as well as it did.
Well, look, it was a blessing for you. It was a blessing for Spurs, because there's no doubt you became one of the best left backs in the Premier League at the time. To have Kyle on the other side and you on the left, what was it about the two of you that complemented each other so well?
For me, I've always said that he's the best in Premier League history. But for me, going into a game, it was just a case of, for me, I know Kyle's going to handle the right side, so I have to handle the left side. And he is an example. He's someone who, we're same age, but I look up to his career that he's had and he's having. That was my mentality, that I knew Kyle, no matter the opponent, Kyle would always deal with them, and it was on me now to take care of the left side, and that's just how I approach games.
Were you too close off the pitch as well? And does that help?
Yeah, we he's a fellow Northerner, and
Sheffield lad.
Yeah. So whenever there'd be any nights out, I'd be with Kyle. So yeah, stuff away from football, I'd be with Kyle. We lived not very close to each other, so yeah, Kyle is somebody who I got along with really well, and I still speak to now.
So what was Harry Redknapp like as a manager?
He was another one, great man manager, just below Martin in my opinion, and he was great. He demanded a lot from the players, but he would give you a lot of responsibility for you to take care of that as well. But yeah, in terms of his man management, like Gareth, and there's a reason why Jermaine Defoe played for him a number of times, Tottenham, Portsmouth, then back at Tottenham. Peter Crouch is another one, Portsmouth, Tottenham. There's a reason why players love to play for him, and yeah, his man management was unbelievable, and I just wish I got to experience that probably a little bit more, like being a regular under him, because he was really, really good.
One man you were a regular under, Mauricio Pochettino. I mean, and that team was quite incredible, in the title race for back-to-back campaigns, League Cup final, the Champions League final. But if people don't recollect what happened against Liverpool, I suppose it was the quarter-final game against Ajax, which was just simply, the Lucas Moura hat-trick and all the rest of it. But that was the real highs of being a Spurs fan. You've given me a little glimpse already of what it was like under Mauricio and how he coached you to become a great left-back. He recorded training sessions, one of the first managers to do that. There was no get out for you, was there?
No, so yeah, that was the first time I'd ever witnessed that or even heard of that. So yeah, literally record training sessions, record gym sessions. So, if it's meant to be 10 reps at this one, and you try and be cheeky and do 8, you go back and watch the video. There's no hiding places. He knows when you arrive at training, when you arrive into the canteen for breakfast, when you then arrive onto the training field for training, he knew everything, and he was so thorough and so precise. And I think you could tell that from, what translated onto the pitch under him. In terms of fitness, that was the first manager that he was huge on fitness and being strong in
double training sessions.
Yeah, being strong in the gym. And yes, it was, for the first year, it was just like a huge learning curve for me, because I was used to playing at the weekend, Sundays or Mondays off after a good result, Wednesdays off as well in midweek. And when he came in, there was none of that, and it's just training, and it was brilliant. It was hard, but it was brilliant.
Danny, do you still maintain if you kept hold of Moussa Dembele, you would have won that Champions League final?
Yeah, for sure. I believe that. Obviously, the club not knowing in January that we're going to be in the Champions League final in June, and then a player coming down to the last 6 months of his contract, I think you fully understand the club's point of view. But yeah, for me, if Moussa, had been there in the Champions League final, I think we would have won that game. But had we not gave away a penalty in the first 30 seconds or whatever, we still could have won the game. But I think because of how that happened, it just, all the training that we had done for 3 weeks had just gone out the window in the first minute of the game. But yeah, that's how highly I rate Moussa Dembele.
I think most football fans, they don't have to be Spurs fans, can recite most of the starting 11 under Mauricio. What was it that you weren't able to cross that line just to finish it?
I'm not sure. I don't want to say experience, because at that time we were the youngest on average, fielding out the starting 11 each week under Maurizio's first 2 or 3 seasons. I'm really not sure. It's hard.
Do you ever ask yourself that?
No, I don't, to be honest. So like going back to the Leicester, when Leicester won the Premier League, I look back and the games that I think Leicester beat us twice that season, I think. Honestly, I don't know, because even the season after, we was unbeaten at home for the whole season, and we'd never done that before. But yet we still finished second. It's hard to pinpoint really that there is, just one, factor why we couldn't just get over the line. But yeah, it's something that, if I think about it, I'd probably be able to give you a better answer over time. But now you're asking me.
Yeah.
No, I can't give you an answer.
Okay. But I have to talk about just the final few months at Spurs with Jose Mourinho, because look, you've gone from manager to manager. It was going so well for you, from Harry and Tim to Maurizio. We've all seen the Amazon documentary, and then you're sitting down and just finding out what's going on with Jose. Can you just describe for me, what was that relationship like?
No, there was no relationship. It was just a normal manager-player relationship. Hello, good morning, how are you? That was it. He came in and he explained that he wanted to build up with like a 3, and he mentioned that Ben Davies is probably more ideal for him in that role, and I don't think I disagree with him there, because I like to attack and get forward just as much as defending. So that was that, and you have to respect every manager's decision, and that was that really. There's not much to report, and people going off what happened on the Amazon thing is just, you shouldn't believe everything that you hear and you see on there, because ultimately that's all fabricated to make the club look as glamorous as possible, and a lot of that stuff couldn't be further from the truth. So yeah, there was no relationship. If I had to describe,
that sounds like there was just literally a very kind of superficial relationship, nothing deeper.
Just a relationship that I've had with a lot of managers. Hello, good morning, how are you? So there was a bad relationship, and there was a great relationship. It was just a normal, manager-player relationship.
How disappointed were you with the way it ended at Spurs? Because I think with 18 months left, you were told you weren't going to have your contract renewed.
No, it's not. It's football. I know how Spurs operate. I'd been there, seen them do that to David Bentley, Benoit Suakoto, Vincent Janssen, and others. So I'd been there as a young kid, and I know how Spurs treat people when they can't bully them. And before that even happened, I had a meeting with the chairman, and I said, I'm not leaving until my contract's finished. I'm going to honour my contract, and I know what's coming. I know you're going to take my number from me. I know you're going to send me with the under 23s. And he looked at me like he didn't know what language I was speaking, as if to say they would never do that. And then first day of pre-season, I return and they do that. So it wasn't a shock. And for me, I honoured my contract, and that's all there is to it. I still go back to the club sometimes, and I've messaged him quite a few times. I've asked him for favours quite a few times. So there's no on my side.
There's no animosity or anything.
No, on my side, no. He's like, for example, 3 years ago, I think Leeds played Spurs last game of the season. So that's local to me, and I was sat in the director's box there, and just a row behind him. As I said, I've messaged him for favours over the last 2 or 3 years, and he's always replied. He's always said if he can help or if he can't help. So for me, there's no issue on my side, and it's a club that Tottenham is all I know. And whenever I'm down south, I do try and go in there and see some of the staff who are still there.
Danny, it's good to hear that from you, Because I know it always feels like you've got Spurs in your heart and the good of the club very much at the top, uppermost in your mind. Because I remember when Spurs were trying to build on that kind of winning momentum under Maurizio, signings weren't quite working out. And I think you even called on the chairman to say that we need better signings. And I think you made public statements about players not being paid what they're worth, really.
Yeah.
And, players sometimes need Googling because even you didn't know who they were who were coming into the door. I mean, do you regret saying stuff like that, or do you still stand by it?
No, I don't regret it because it's the truth. We're going away with England, the Spurs boys, and people, the lads who are there, they're literally laughing at us at what we're getting paid. And West Brom. I remember one season West Brom, fighting relegation, and we're near the top, and some of their players are on more than what we was on, and it wasn't right. And no, I don't regret any of that at all. And
win bonuses was an interesting one.
I don't even know if we even got win bonuses.
Wasn't it about top 6 or something like that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but that's private. But yeah, there wasn't great. And in terms of the signings, I think I was right because they're still nowhere near winning a trophy. And I'm not saying it was the chairman who was making them signings, but we've had directors of football at that club who they really need to be answering some questions on some of the players that they brought into the club.
Look, the only reason I brought up win bonuses is because Ben Foster mentioned it.
Exactly. So
in
teams
his
laugh.
Yeah,
teams laugh at us.
For those who aren't aware of what we're talking about, it was like win bonuses are for those players who managed to get big wins or just wins against notable heavyweights, right? But in this case with Spurs, it had to be by at least a couple of goals, which meant
did he say that?
Yeah.
How does he know that?
Well, I don't know.
So yeah, there you go. Like, I'm not lying. When we would go away with England, the lads would laugh at us at what we're being paid. And I have one friend who was at another club, and Spurs were in for him, and they offered him less than what he was on at the other club. So it's just like, no, it's not right. And I spoke about that, and the lads want to celebrate that I'd said something, but then they don't back it up when it's time. And but no, I don't regret saying anything because it was the truth. And I think now the lads are being paid appropriately there.
Yeah. Okay, so you had your say there, and I've mentioned already, you do like to say things how it is, which I think is lauded, should be welcomed, because I think too many people will say one thing and mean something quite different. Especially like June 2018, when you came out and spoke about your depression. How hard was that to do, to be public with something so personal?
No, it wasn't difficult. It was just the lead up to the World Cup, and we had a media day at St George's Park, and one of the reporters just asked me what did it mean for me to be here going to the World Cup, and on the back of I'd returned from another serious knee injury, and then I couldn't get into the team. Ben Davies played majority of the season, and rightly so. It was probably one of the best seasons I'd seen Ben have. And so they asked me that question. I said, it meant the world to me because I hadn't played a lot, and I'd been going through a difficult time. So it meant the world to me to being selected to join the squad in Russia that year. So yeah, it wasn't something that was difficult at all.
What triggered it? Was it that knee injury?
Yeah, I'd say that was the start of it. Trying for about 4 months to try and get fit, being told that knee surgery wasn't needed. They thought that I could get away with it, and then in reality, then having the operation 4 months later, then having to then rehab for another 5 months. It was just a long, exhausting period for me.
How bad did it get for you?
No, it was just this usual stuff. Your mood, and not wanting to do stuff, and I don't think I had a haircut or a shave for a year. So yeah, it was just that sort of stuff.
How did you manage to deal with it
Yeah, I just got through it. Yeah, I just had to get on with it. I like to handle things and do things. If I ever have a problem or an issue, I like to handle it myself. And yeah, that's just what I did.
That was at the same time, I think, while you were at Tottenham, and you spoke about the fact that you got together with England for the World Cup was almost like the perfect way to kind of get you into something more motivational. Would you accept that? Was that a blessing in disguise to go away with the England setup then?
Yeah, it was great because I probably wouldn't have been. So I returned that season from the knee injury in like October, November, and I was always playing catch up to get to the fitness of the rest of the squad. And going away with England then in the World Cup allowed me to continually train and then play in some of the games, and then only have probably 2 weeks off to then coming back into Spurs. So I kept training, so the World Cup, and then I kept training in the period afterwards, and then I returned to the fitness of old. And yes, that was great for me going to the World Cup, not only because it's the World Cup, but we got to the semis, which was an amazing experience in itself. Just seeing the videos back home of how the whole country was behind us, and yeah, it was definitely, it'd be a period, a 6, 7, 8 week period of time that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Talking of personal battles, just moving on to your early experience with the England team and the under-21s when you went to Serbia in 2012, I think it was. And there was clearly a racial element that was evident there at the time. From the stands, missiles thrown, and I know you're probably kind of almost tired of talking about it, but to go through that at such a young age, what was that like for you?
It wasn't. It was just. I tell you, what was more worrying was it was just a hostile environment in terms of the crowd, and even like before the game, I remember we had stood on one side of the tunnel and Serbia on the other, but we were stood in their spot, so then we'd had to cross over. And just remember there was trying to like hit us a little bit from then. So already now my mind's like we're heading into battle. We're going into
from the players were.
Yeah.
Right.
So as we're crossing over, they was trying to nudge us and stuff like that.
So you never experienced that before?
No, never experienced that. And then literally, the crowd was on top of us, and playing the game and hearing the racial abuse. It didn't like throw me off my game or anything. Obviously there was anger there, but it's not. I didn't ever want to like leave the pitch, or I didn't ever want to cry or anything. I think at most I probably wanted to 2-foot somebody, but yeah, it was a daunting experience in terms of how hostile the crowd were, but it didn't affect me too much.
But it was just the way it all culminated at the full-time whistle. And then there were fans on the pitch, and obviously there was a bit of a to-do between both camps. You got the ball at full-time and kicked it. You got red carded after the whistle.
I don't even remember. So is that what I did?
Yeah.
I think it might have been. So was it a red card? I didn't know if it was like a yellow. Then it led into a suspension into the.
My understanding was back then.
Yeah, no, you might be right. Yeah, you might be right.
But what it meant was it felt like your frustrations had kind of finally come to a head, because it had been kicking off all game long.
Yeah.
And then the fallout was pretty pathetic in that the Serbian FA, didn't really admit to any guilt, but instead pointed the finger at you for your unsportsmanlike and aggressive behaviour with kicking the ball out.
Right, yeah, it's a bit of a blur to me now. But yeah, what I do remember was definitely being punished, because going into the Euros that summer, I think I was suspended for the first 2 games possibly, and Stephen Corker might have been suspended as well. So I remember that we'd have to try and appeal that, in the coming weeks before getting to the Euros. So, I definitely do feel as if that, I was definitely punished for something that I should never be punished for.
Yeah. And similar scenario happened again 7 years later in Montenegro.
Yeah, again, yeah. That happened, yeah, playing with the seniors. And I just, again, I held it together. But then I got probably a silly yellow card out of frustration. And I remember going into the changing room afterwards, and the manager says, what do you think you're playing at getting a yellow card? And I was like, hold on a minute, you try and be racially abused and see if you don't react in that manner. And he apologised after that, which obviously I'm grateful for. But it just probably just fills me with anger more than I'm not going to be one of them who says, come on lads, let's leave the pitch. I wouldn't want to put that onto them.
But why not?
Because I just wouldn't want to. I don't know. I know it's cliche, but I think the best way to overcome that is winning the game and getting out of there safely. And that's just that's all I wanted to do. It doesn't make me, as I said, it doesn't make me want to cry or anything like that. It just obviously makes me a bit angry, but it's just one of them things. It's to be expected. I think it's happened probably about 3 or 4 times in my career, and first when I was about 12 or 13, and people wasn't punished then, and the last time it happened to me was then at probably 28. I would have been maybe there, and again people are not punished. So like, what's the point in reacting when there's no punishment for that?
Is it true you were so frustrated by what was going on with the racial element that you couldn't retire soon enough after that?
No, that's not.
Is that blowing it out of proportion?
Yeah, that's out of proportion. I think.
But did you fall out of love with
football?
No.
What I was getting at there was there's not enough black people working in football, especially upstairs in football clubs. Whenever I see a black person at the clubs that I've been to, the cleaners, nothing wrong with that, by the way, but I'm saying there should be more black people working within football clubs, and definitely more black coaches. And some of the things that the generation before, the older players who I looked up to, they sort of feel that, again, what's the point? We're not given an equal chance. So that's what I was getting at, on top of then being racially abused when you're playing and stuff like that, and there's no heavy penalties. So that's what I was getting at.
Do you think that's changed? Do you think that there is any scope for change in the future?
I don't know. Obviously, you'd like to think that there's hope for that, but again, you still don't see many black coaches working at the top level. I haven't been into a football club for a while, but I'd imagine it's still the same. There's not a lot of black people working upstairs in football clubs. So yeah, you'd like to think that there can be hope, but if you're seeing players like Vinicius Jr. getting abused when he's playing for the biggest and best club in the world, then you sort of realise there's still probably a bit to go.
I just want to round off this part talking about England. Amongst your 29 caps, your highlight, I suppose, would be Russia?
Yes, that is my highlight, but probably going to the first the Euros at 2016 was, we didn't do well, but that was just a surreal moment in itself. I'd grown up playing obviously the computer football games, and I always remember the Free Lion song coming on whenever I'd play, and I wasn't expecting to hear that on the first game, and just hearing that being played throughout the stadium, it was just like wow, I'm back to being 8 or 9, 10 years old. And that moment alone, I think we played Russia the first game. That was, again, a surreal moment. But as a whole, definitely going to Russia and seeing videos from back home, like, everybody was supporting us and believing that we could do it. It was just a great vibe compared to the camp, the 2016 one. It was just, completely opposite, and it filled us as players with belief. And I think you can see that now going into the tournaments that they've gone on to after that, even though we've not quite got over the line. But I think, that was the catalyst of where the team are right now.
And you've seen Harry Kane in close quarters, both for club and for country. Will he be considered as one of England's best ever players, do you think?
Yes, for sure. He has to be for sure. Yeah, I know people don't buy into, he's not won anything yet, so he can't be considered a great. I think just the only thing you can not blame him for, but he's just being too loyal, and and having belief that one day his club of his dreams is going to get over the line and win a trophy. And I hope he's not punished for being too loyal. And yeah, for sure he has to go down as one of, if not the greats that's played for England and in the Premier League.
Quick reminder, you're in the zone with Gambling Zone alongside former Spurs left-back Danny Rose. That's Danny's personal story. When we come back, we'll be getting his thoughts on the current Premier League season after the first 3 match weeks. Welcome back to In the Zone with Gambling Zone, and my special guest today, former Spurs fullback Danny Rose. Danny, so we've had your personal story, and that was fascinating. But I'm also interested now to gauge your views to what we've seen in the first few weeks of the Premier League season. Already we've got an international break. I bet players hate that when they've just got going for their clubs.
Yeah, I'd say, especially if you're doing well, but if you're not doing well, a break is welcomed as soon as possible. But yeah, for someone like Haaland, I think he'd want the season to be going on and scoring plenty more hat tricks.
Let's start with Spurs' start. 4 points from their first 3 games. So Leicester, Everton, Newcastle.
Yeah.
Is that a fair reflection of where they're at, or is it too early to say?
I think it's too early. I've not managed to watch any of the. I caught 20 minutes of the Newcastle game, and Spurs. It looked, I don't want to say easy, but you were just waiting for Spurs. Even when they went 1-0 behind, you were just waiting for Spurs to get the first. I saw them get the first, and then I fell asleep, and I was expecting to wake up to see that they'd gone on to win 2 or 3-1. And
you would have thought the same against Leicester as well, by the way.
Really,
they should have been 4-0 up at half time.
Right? Yeah, I heard that as well. So, it's not the worst position to be in. If you're in a situation like this, you'd want it that you're playing well, but you're just not finishing your chances. And the second you're not getting those chances, you're not creating any chances, then it's a time to worry. But for me, it's nice to hear and see that they're playing really well, and more new faces that they've brought in and let go at the club. And last season they got to probably about November, December, and everyone's wondering, can they do it? Can they do it? And then they fell off towards the last.
The injuries were key, weren't they?
Yeah, so I'd like to think people wasn't getting too carried away then when they was doing so well in terms of how they're doing now. It's still very early days. You have to let the players settle in. In terms of they signed Archie Gray,
Solanke. In fact, he's not, and he's missed 2 of the 3 games.
Exactly. So they've had a bit of bad luck, but for me, it's far too early to be judging or getting a bit agitated.
If that had to be a general overview of Spurs last season, despite the injuries to Maddison and Van de Ven, which were obviously key, is that they could have been sharper in front of goal and kept more clean sheets. But they've only kept 1 clean sheet in the 3. They didn't sign a defender over the summer. Radu Dragazin, though, was obviously one of the latest defensive acquisitions, and he's come in for Mickey Van de Ven recently. But is that a concern? 1 clean sheet in 3 right now, as they look to improve on last season?
No, not for after 3 games. I wouldn't class that as a concern. I've not watched them a great deal, since I left the club. But I went to Old Trafford last season to watch them against United, and I was in with the fans, and
that must have been interesting.
I was covered up though; they couldn't tell it was me. But watching them live and seeing them how they play, I left the game, asking my friends, "But do you think this team could be the team that I was a part of?" Because how it was refreshing to see. I had caught some games under Conte. I've never speak badly about him as a manager. I would have loved to play under, but it wasn't exciting. I caught some games under Jose and Nuno, and again, it probably wasn't exciting to considering the players that they had at the disposal, and to then see that live of how they was playing was just like, it's a breath of fresh air. And I think how they play, I think they're susceptible to probably conceding goals, which is obviously not ideal. It's not what you want, but the free flowing football that they try to play, I think it's to be expected. But they're going to have to, if they're not winning games, they're going to have to try and minimise that the best that they can, because I don't know what their objectives are for this season, but City, Arsenal are just, I can't believe how well and what a well-oiled drilled machine Arsenal are at the minute. Liverpool look like they've not got a new manager. It's just business as usual, so it's going to be difficult. Spurs don't want to be giving those teams too much of a lead if the goal is to break into that top four this season.
And having had one season of Ange Postecoglou, can you see Spurs becoming genuine title contenders under him?
I'm not sure you can say that. I just find that just really disrespectful to Man City. Were there year after year after year for the last 6 or 7 years while Guardiola's been there. It's disrespectful to Liverpool, who are there or thereabouts year after year. For me, and now Arsenal are there. For me, I don't think Spurs have that right to be saying, we're gonna challenge this year. They've not earned the right. I was guilty of thinking that we could have done that when I was there, but taking a step back and being away from it, Tottenham don't have the right to be saying we're going to challenge, or we're going to win the FA Cup, we're going to win the Carabao Cup, because the reality is they've not won a trophy for 17 years. 2007, I think it was the year that I joined the club. So yeah, for me, I don't think it's fair, and they don't have the right to be saying that just yet.
So are you fearing a tough challenge on Sunday in the derby?
Yeah, I do, because I just see Arsenal now, and I've got one friendship group that's half Arsenal and Spurs, and I just remember giving the Arsenal side a lot of stick 3 years ago when Arsenal was not doing so well under Mikel Arteta, and just seeing them now is just like I can't believe it. And yeah, it's going to be difficult for Spurs, and I think it's at Spurs next weekend, but I still find that a very, very difficult game for Spurs. And if they don't win that, then I think it could be a bit nervy there.
Disappointment for Arsenal when they dropped points in their last game. What was interesting, Declan Rice's red card will be seen as being pivotal, and obviously that's kicked off a whole lot of discussion from the supporters. But can you see Arsenal bridging that 2-point gap on City this season? For
sure. And if I was unsure before the last week of the window, getting Raheem Sterling is just an unreal piece of business by Arsenal. Not quite sure what Chelsea are thinking of there, but for me, Raheem Sterling is that last piece of the jigsaw for me to challenge again City, or run him to the wire like they did last season. Raheem Sterling, it's an unbelievable signing. Unbelievable.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, for me, if I'm looking at Arsenal, I know Saka is unbelievable. His record speaks for itself. But it's just nice now that he has some sort of competition now, that he has to keep his standards. And even on the other side, I seen that the weekend Martinelli didn't play. Trossard came in, rightly so, because I think he scored against Villa. But now that front line is just, they have healthy competition now across the front line. And for me, that, as I said, I think that's the last piece of the jigsaw that they needed.
He seems to have lost his way, obviously, in the last couple of seasons.
In one way, I can understand if people are saying that he does have a point to prove, but in another, playing for City, Liverpool, Chelsea, and now Arsenal by the age of 29 and winning what he's won, again, his record and his trophy cabinet speaks for itself. And yeah, he did lose his place at the England setup, but before that, Raheem is right up there with one of the star performers under Gareth in the years that he was there.
So if I had to push you on the spot right now, Arsenal to pip City, yes or no?
No. I still feel City, they've just got too much. If Haaland's fit, no, I can't see City slipping up.
Even though they've got no Alvarez.
That's why I said if Haaland stays fit, then and if this is Guardiola's last season, by the way, I can't see City, not giving everything to make sure Guardiola cleans up with every possible trophy if it is his last year.
You're right to footnote all this chat, not to jump to too many conclusions because it's only been 3 games. But it doesn't take long for Manchester United to be a club in crisis, does it?
Wow. That's my team as a child. And wow, I watched probably an hour and I fell asleep again at the weekend. Liverpool.
You sleep a lot during these games, by the way.
It was United v Liverpool, and I'm just watching it, and it's just it's frightening. Even now, I'm not so much of a fan now, but watching them, I couldn't tell you what their style of play is. I couldn't tell you when Maguire drives out with the ball, there's going to be these rotations to get this person on the ball. I can't tell you anything. The only thing I could tell you is Onana will drive with the ball and he'll hit a diag to Rashford. That's the only pattern of play I see with United. Obviously, I would never like to be negative towards a manager because any manager has more bravery than me to be on that touchline. But just seeing how he dealt with Harry Maguire, rightly or wrongly, I think how he's been treated is not great. Jadon Sancho, I know they had the initial fallout, but if I'm Jadon Sancho and I'm seeing Anthony coming on the pitch as much as he did last season, I'd be very unhappy as well. There's another player, I can't think who it is, but just, things that have happened over the last 2 or 3 years, how they've dealt with stuff, and then, how they play on the pitch it's worrying. It really is, and I don't see that getting much better in the near future.
You don't?
No.
So these aren't early teething problems?
No. How Man United not having a style of play it's not just these 3 games. It's been evident for a long while. And Jamie Carragher, he says that, and he's not Jamie Carragher having a Liverpool hat on. He's bang on with what he says, and just, I don't know. It's worrying for me. I don't see them bridging the gap into the top 4 this season. No way.
But Ten Hag is now under the spotlight because he was tactically outdone by another manager who's only been in the Premier League 2 games. Should they have lost so in the way that they did against a manager who's still getting to grips with the Premier League, or is it because they have a better squad right now? Well,
yeah, Liverpool do have a better squad, but obviously the result was fair, by the way, and it could have been more. I know United had a couple of chances in the second half. I get that, but the result is right. It was the right indication of what had happened on the pitch on that day, and it's right in terms of how you see Liverpool Football Club ran and how you see Man United ran. It was right in terms of the signings that Liverpool make and the signings that Man United make. Like, the clubs are in 2 different contrasts, and it's not a coincidence that Slot has been able to go in there in whenever he went in there, June, let's say. He's got pretty much the same squad. That they know what it takes to be up there contending in terms of performances and things like that. Salah, his record at United, and even in the Premier League, like, it's just the 2 clubs, you can't even compare them. And the Man United are a long way away from being what they were, and it just doesn't help that the club was potentially shopping around for managers in the summer or before the FA Cup final. It just doesn't help at all, because if you're a player in that dressing room, you sort of know that the people upstairs are not really sold on Ten Hag at the moment. And and if they continue to put performances like that out, then rightly so.
Casemiro was also in the headlines after his 2 mistakes.
Yeah.
Where is he at right now? Should he be a regular starter for Manchester United?
Well, if you sell McTominay,
should they have sold him?
probably not. But if I'm McTominay, after how important his goals were last season, and you're probably still not going to be a starter because Maino is top class and Casemiro's experience. And if I'm McTominay, I'm saying I can't turn this opportunity down to go to Napoli. So in terms of what United have at the disposal at the minute, Casemiro has to play. I don't know who else. I know they signed
Ugarte.
From PSG, but he wasn't available. You know, even that in itself, you've wanted that player for so long, and you've done the deal on the last day of the window. Like me growing up, that's not the Man United I know. Like, you know, doing deals on the last day of the window that you need a player in that position. It's just how, obviously, it's going to change now with the new owners, and you know, is it Dan Ashworth who's gone in there? I've worked with him in England. It's all going to change now, but yeah, that's not the Man United I know. And Casemiro, I've not watched a great deal of football, but you know, the games that I have seen, you can sort of see that, you know, the Premier League is a different pace to what the La Liga is, and you know, seeing him get dispossessed how he did at the weekend for the second goal, and you know, then he's tried a first time pass which wasn't really on for the first goal. It sort of looks like that he's having a tough time at the minute, and he shouldn't be the scapegoat, by the way, for how they are and, you know, how they're playing. But if you have the career that he's had, you sort of probably expect a little bit better from him. And so I understand maybe the frustration there, but I definitely think he shouldn't be a scapegoat for, you know, what's happening with that football club.
But the midfield seems to be a problematic area for United. And I'm just, you know, you talk about Ugarte, as he tries to get up to speed, because Erik ten Hag has said he hasn't played as much football with PSG recently, so he's having to play catch up with his fitness. Is that already too much resting on him to try and salvage that middle third?
Well, yeah, it could be. And then you see that Casemiro came off at the weekend, and I didn't even check. Was Christian on the bench, Eriksen?
Can't remember. But Toby Collier came on.
Yeah, he did, yeah, but not opting for Christian. I'm not saying because Christian, a well-experienced professional, that he has the automatic right to be coming on for Casemiro, but it doesn't bode well that, you know, if you're a young player, that's great, that the manager trusts a young player to come in after 45 minutes against one of the strongest teams in the world. I get that, but it sort of, you know, seems to me that the manager doesn't, I don't want to say trust, but he doesn't, I don't know, he can't get out of Christian, you know, what he's proved over the years, especially at Tottenham. And already now, if Casemiro goes on loan, by the way, to Galatasaray, now you're another player short in the middle, and then you've got to wait for Ugarte to get up to speed. Maino is top class. Should that responsibility be placed on him, you know, so much, so early, even though he looks like he can handle it? But for me, it does look like, you know, it's a bit of a problem situation for United in that position.
Did they miss a trick not to appoint Mauricio Pochettino?
First time round, I know we was doing well at Spurs, but I don't know how hard they tried, but I do know that they wanted him, and I don't know if that's a case of him being too loyal to Spurs and believing in the project that we was nearly there. But I would have definitely tried harder to sign him then years ago. And then before he went to Chelsea, not sure, because me playing against Ten Hag's Ajax team and how they played, I was one of the first, you know, over the moon that he's going to United. And when I say they don't have a style of play, I'm going off, I've played against his team, who was one of the best that I've played against. We played them in the home game in the Champions League. They passed us off the park, and it's the first time ever that we've had to change formation halfway through a game. So I'm going off that, and then going off a difficult return leg, but even that we still won the game. So when I'm saying United don't have a style of play and that they don't look appealing to watch, it's because I'm going off the style of football Ten Hag played at Ajax. So
how surprised are you that there is still no identity?
Honestly, I'm really, really surprised. It's mind blowing. It really is. Oh, and sorry to cut you off. The other player that they dealt with wrong, in my opinion, De Gea. So yeah, when I'm going back to how things have been dealt with there with players, I don't know if this is karma or what, but yeah, I don't like what's happened in those scenarios.
Also incredible to see how long it took De Gea to find himself a new club.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah. And just sticking with Mauricio Pochettino, we spoke about maybe United links, but do you ever see him one day going back to Spurs to complete unfinished business?
I did. I 100% thought that pre-Chelsea. I don't think him going to Chelsea for a year hinders that happening again in the future. But then now, is it 4 years the next World Cup? Hopefully, yeah, he's going to see that out. That's another 4 years. It's just anything could happen in the next 4 years, but definitely before he went to Chelsea.
2 years because Euro's just done, isn't it?
Sorry. So okay, but still a lot could happen in the next 2 years. But definitely before he went to Chelsea, I thought it was nailed on that he probably would have been before Ange. Now I still believe that he will return, but definitely before Chelsea, I would have said 1,000,000% he's got unfinished business there.
Okay, finally, just mentioned the Euros briefly. Lee Carsley, England. Good temporary appointment?
I don't know. In terms of what's available right now, I'm not sure England could have got who they initially wanted if it wasn't Lee Carsley. I think it's good that there's some continuity in terms of Lee would have worked under Gareth and what Gareth created there in terms of the atmosphere, the harmony there, that Lee will know everything about that and be able to continue that. So in that sense, yeah, I think it's a great appointment. But yeah, I don't know who England could have gone for, but had maybe Maurizio been available, had maybe Guardiola been available, had, I don't know, situation with Graham Potter, I'm not sure, but had everyone been, up for selection, I'm not sure if Lee Carsley would have been the first choice pick. But it's amazing that he's got this opportunity. It's amazing that he's brought in players that he's worked with in the past in terms of Gomez,
which is refreshing, really.
Yeah, it's really good. And as a manager, if you're going into something new, I think it's a good rule to have, that you work with possibly players that you've worked with previously, so they know what it takes to succeed under him. So yeah, it's a new era, new regime, and let's just see where it takes them. Because as I said, they're not a million miles away. A semi, 2 finals, and a quarter in Qatar. Was it Qatar?
Doha, yeah.
So they're not a million miles away. So hopefully, Lee can just continue that, and hopefully get them over the line in 2 years, or even in the Nation League. The Nation League's a great platform to start at, and then hopefully in the Euros they can get over that line.
He's hoping.
Well, it's not like hoping pre Russia, where it was a case of I went to the Euros in France and we got knocked out to Iceland. So we're not there. So at least now we're hoping, because we've tasted a little bit of what it could look like. So I'd like to feel that fans and players alike can now believe that it's not a million miles away, and it possibly will be coming home soon.
Danny, we're going to have to leave it there.
Cheers.
Enjoyed it?
Yeah. It's probably the first thing I've done
for a long time.
Yeah, a couple of years maybe.
Well, look, we can't wait to see you back on the TV. I think as a pundit, you're also a breath of fresh air. Maybe leave the hat behind.
Sorry, I haven't had a haircut, so I have to keep it on. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going for a haircut soon.
Danny, great to have your company.
Cheers. Thank you.
Danny Rose, and you've been in the zone with Gambling Zone, where of course you can find the latest betting offers in the world of football at gamblingzone.com/UK/betting. I'm Manish Bhasin, and I'll see you next time.